Hi, everyone. This is Catching Up with the Nerds with your hosts, Tom and JC. This is a podcast about two dads that are catching up on all the nerdy stuff we missed, sharing how we pass on our nerdy passions to our kids, and deep diving into nerd pop culture to make it more accessible for you. Welcome, everyone. How's it going, Tom?
Hello. Hello. How are you?
Hiya.
Hiya. Yeah, we're back for one more. Awesome.
Last one of the year, people. Well,
Last one of the year.
Or is it?
Oh my God, we'll never know. There might be a plot twist. So I'm Tom. As you may have heard before, I am the talking French guy of the podcast. I'm married to a lovely Spanish woman named Liz, who is hopefully listening to this one because it's going to be a good episode. I've got two kids. One of them is 11-year-old, and she is a girl because I just said she. So her name's Emily, and she's got a brother who is almost 4 years old, named Louis. And what do I like, JC? Well, I like video games. I'm glad you asked. I like movies, superhero movies, TV series that are cool, like now The Mandalorians, but we get into that very shortly. Anything that is nerdy, gadgety, and takes you back to the 80s, 90s, and your childhood memories, I like. What about you, sir? Who are you?
First of all, before I say who I am, I say, that's your best intro so far, buddy.
Thank you.
We should record that. I don't know.
I'm drinking vodka, that's why.
Never too early. So I am your other host, Juan Carlos Garay. Everybody calls me JC. I'm originally from Honduras, but live in the UK for 10 years. That's where I met Tom. And we actually met while getting prepared for like birthing classes. Not that we were doing any of the birthing, but we kept in touch since. And yes, I also have an 11-year-old son. His name is Aiden. And I got a little 5-year-old daughter whose name is Arabella. And I'm married to an amazing woman called Fiorella. And I am into all things graphic novels. I love my good nerdy kind of genre series. Love a good nerdy movie. And I will occasionally dabble in nerdy video games. So that's us, people. Okay. So let's kick off this episode. This is our end of the year episode. It's the best of 2020. It's the stuff that we found most nerdy in this very unfortunately forgettable, or unforgettable year, depending how you're looking at it, which was a year that didn't have a lot actually. So it's been interesting pulling together lists because a lot of stuff that was meant to come out this year just didn't come out. That was a lot of like the big nerdy genre stuff. And we still managed to pull together a list for you guys so that you guys can get into some of the nerdy stuff that we enjoyed this year.
Yeah, so 2020 is the year we'll never forget, but we also never want to remember, I think. So that's what I'm thinking about when I think 2020 these days. So yeah, as JC mentioned, we've managed to pull a list together of stuff we loved. I think mine is orientated towards video games and TV series more than movies. I think movies was a strange one, wasn't it? There was not many released. And when they got released, it went straight onto your usual platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime. So you didn't have the feel of a full-blown theatrical release, which is weird though, because now when I was going through my list, I was like, what movie did I enjoy? And then there's not a whole lot of them that A, came out this year, and B, that were out of this world, Like for example, I was really looking forward to, I know it's not really nerdy, well, you can argue it could be a nerdy film, but James Bond was supposed to come out this year, and that's usually a massive one for me because I love James Bond and everything that's related to his world. So the fact that it didn't come out this year, that's kind of a big blow, well, to my job anyway, because that's as I'm working for Sony and it's a Sony film, financially it was a big loss for us. But in terms of just enjoying the character and enjoying the storyline, that was something we didn't get to enjoy. So that would have been on my list, I think. The last James Bond, the latest James Bond. But hey,
I agree, dude. Like that was the one that was going to be co-written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and it was meant to be like woke Bond sort of thing. and I was just looking forward to what they were going to do with the character, because I heard that like one of the Bond, like the Bond ladies or the Bond women, was going to step up and actually be like a proper character, not just like somebody that's there for the ride. And I was really looking forward to that. So yeah, I know it's a bummer that the Bond movie didn't come out. So is Sony going to do like what Warner Media did, where it's like just drop everything onto streaming? You think?
No, I think they're very committed in getting everything back to the way it was, as in getting back to getting stuff released in theater. So they're not. I don't think. I know for a fact that a couple months ago there wasn't any talk of releasing anything online, direct release to consumers. I think it was everything had to go back to normal, and we get people back into the movie theaters. I don't think they want to release a film that is as big financially and in terms of what it represents. You wouldn't drop James Bond right in there on Netflix, because that would just look weird. It would be just strange. It would be a strange thing to do. You want the premiere, you want everything, you want the whole thing that goes around, and the red carpet and the fans and the newspapers being there. It's something that is very unique in the world of cinema still. That the James Bond is still very much a classic. So you don't want to do something that is not classic. You want to have your classic release.
Yeah, it's an event for sure. So that helps to kind of like paint the picture of our list, because it was such a weak year for movies.
Yeah.
Even I believe even the Oscars got pushed out because they want to give more time for more movies to come out. So I found my list to be very series heavy. Because I thought there was some fantastic series that came out this year, which I enjoyed way more than the movies, if I'm honest. But we'll try to sneak in a movie or two in there.
Same here. So tell you what, now you've done the little nice little intro. Shall we go and start with your? So they're not in any order, right? We've got a top 5, but it's not a top 5 as in number 1 is the best. It's a top 5. It's a list of 5 recommendations, put it this way, of things we've really loved / enjoyed. And I think everyone else should, if not watched any of the things we're going to mention, we should go and check them out. So I think we'll start with you, right? What's your number 1 pick?
And we'll have a top 5, plus at the end we'll do kind of a quick round of honorable mentions. So I'm going to start my first one with the Umbrella Academy. Okay. Gotta be honest, I absolutely love that series. It's the series that I think of as it's the series that should not work in any level. When you describe it to people, it just flat out sounds dumb. But it is so good. During the early days of the pandemic, that was like my go-to feel-good show. Because it is, the best way I can describe it is it's the X-Men meets the Royal Tenenbaums.
All right, cool.
That's the best way I can describe that series, because it's basically this dysfunctional family that got thrown together, and they're having all these quarrels and issues with each other, and they're all broken in all these different ways. Like one guy has like these like really bad daddy issues. One dude is like a raving alcoholic and is like kind of like has like mental depression and stuff. Another dude is just like obsessed with like somehow living up to like his father's like image of him and stuff like that. Like all of these things that like come together, but they all have superpowers as well. But they're not like crazy superpowers like I'm immortal or something like that. It's like the superpowers are like B-level superpowers, except for like one maybe. They're kind of like, all right. So one dude's like fairly strong, but not like Hulk strong. Right? Like one dude can like talk to ghosts, but it's not really all that useful at the end of the day. One dude is like kind of like a Batman sort of take. He's like the kind of the mass vigilante sort of thing, and he's like really good with knives and stuff. So they all have these like superpowers that are just kind of like okay. But what's cool is just the dynamic of their relationships. That's what makes it like an absolutely fascinating watch. Because the plot itself, I can see videos being made of this, of like plot holes in it, like crazy, for sure. But the series is good enough to draw you in based on the characters.
So without any spoilers, is it the classic superheroes TV series or movies that there's a big bad guy and they've got to go and kill it, or is it just more about the dynamic between them and
Very good point. Actually the premise is less big bad guy, and it has a lot to do with like time travel. That's really what makes it like super, super nerdy, actually. But it's about stopping the apocalypse. So they know the apocalypse is coming. Yeah. But they don't know what form it takes. And when you look at them, you're like, there's no way these people are going to stop the apocalypse. But then it goes into all these crazy worlds, because the world building of it is just super nice, because it's like you get to feel for like the house that they live in. And that's kind of like the mansion in X-Men, right? It's like that sort of feel like that's where they trained. They were all trained to be like these amazing like superheroes when they were young. But at the same time, like they never actually made it that big. They all wound up just going on, and like one guy's like a bartender now and stuff like that. And they have to come back because the father, and this is not a big spoiler, it happens very early. The father passes away. So they have to come back for his funeral. And that's where kind of the story kicks off, because one of them had been missing for years. And it turns out it's one of them that could time travel. And then he goes off into the future and gets stuck in the future. And while being stuck in the future, he's actually stuck in the post-apocalypse future. So he's by himself. So he ends up he ends up having like a full-on relationship, like talking to a mannequin for like years, because he has no one to talk to. So he slowly like starts losing his mind a little bit. But then one day he makes it back, only that he's back to his young self. Even though he's like 60 years old in his body, he's back to like 15-year-old him. And then the others are all grown up and they're like in their 30s. So it's like this weird clash of like, he's still young, they're still older, but he's like a trained agent now for this other company that's doing stuff in time travel. So anyways, all that gets really messy really quickly. But the cool part is that at least 2 to 3 times a season, they have a full-on dance sequence. And it's one of my favorite things in that show. It's literally what I like. I'll go back and just rewatch the dance sequence. And I think it's like the 2nd or 3rd episode of them walking into their old rooms where they grew up. And then they all play the same song at the same time. Dude, that sequence is masterful, dude. It is so nice. And it's fun because it just flat out makes my nerdy heart feel happy.
Good. Okay, I'll probably end up watching it, because it's been on my watch list for a while. That's on Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. It's not like it's going to get dark sort of series. This is very much lighthearted. It makes you feel good. It's funny. It's even super dumb in some moments, but it always draws you in. And what I will say, look out for this. You know how like when an episode drops, there's always like the initial sequence. And then they give you like the title, and then you actually start the actual episode.
Yeah.
Those little like initial sequences in Umbrella Academy, I think, are some of the best ones done on TV right now. They're so good. Each one of those initial sequences. They're actually, sometimes they're better than the full-on episode. So just for watching those, it is worth it.
They should just do Instagram posts with those, and that's it.
Honestly, they're very good. So that's Umbrella Academy. That's my first one, not my top one, but my first one. Over to you, sir.
So I think I was going to talk about something else first, but because you talk about Umbrella Academy and this is about superheroes, I'm going to jump straight into The Boys. Because I know you've enjoyed that, and it's really I think it was a surprise hit for me this year. So for those who don't know, The Boys it's on Amazon Prime. It's produced by, I believe, actually, I think it's a Sony production in partnership with Amazon. I believe it is.
Oh, really?
I have to think about it. Yeah, I have to look into it, but I believe it was mentioned at work at some point. So The Boys is really interesting because it's what would happen if superheroes would be working for a big corporation, and what that entails is that they have to do the bidding of that big corporation, but also they have to look into how their social media is running, how they're being perceived, and how they look like to the rest of the world. So I think it's really an emphasis in season 1, isn't it, where they have to be really careful about how they look like. You know, if one action they're taking impacts their followers, or the way they're perceived by their followers, then that's a bad thing ultimately for the big corporation, but specifically for the superhero that is involved. So I think there's only 2 seasons, I believe. Right now it got really dark, I think. Well, it's dark throughout. It's not for kids at all. There's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of body parts flying around, and there's a lot, like the first scene is it sets you up. Like you get the tone right away in the first scene.
Yes.
So obviously, if you've got kids under 18, that's a big no for them. Please do not watch. I'm trying to remember because there's so much going on in that series that it's very hard to sum up, do a summary of what it is all about. But basically, one of the main character, I think it's this fight between the evil superhero, who is supposed to be the most likable, almost Superman like character. What's his face again? What's his name again? I forgot his name. Damn it! Why did I forget his name?
Why am I blanking? He's the Homelander.
Homelander, yeah, exactly. Even his name is
yes.
So Homelander is literally not literally. He's being chased down by another man who's in there, whose names we forgot again. Sorry, Tom from the future. I'm gonna pause it right there.
Whose name is it?
I had their names.
Wait,
I should have.
Who are you talking about? Okay.
The guy who's chasing Homelander, well, the guy who's trying to bring him down.
Oh, Butcher.
That's it. The fake English guy.
Oh yeah, Carl Urban. He does a bit of a shit accent. That's the only downside of that show. Yeah, his accent's not great.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's start from there. What was I saying? I'll start with the plot again, as in the. I'll start talking about Homelander. Anyway. 3, 2, 1. So the vague, I'm gonna go vague again. The vague storyline, the vague plot of it is Homelander, who's working for this big corporation, Vought, who is we'll get to find out in the end. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but it's not a nice corporation to say the least. And so Homelander's chased, or he's being tracked by this guy called Butcher or whatever you want to call him, who's looking for revenge. As you will find out during the season, his wife was killed, or was she, by Homelander. So he's looking to extract revenge on the Homelander and all of the superheroes that are related to Vought Enterprise, and that's where you take it from. I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to spoil it because there's a lot of things that happen, and if I talk too much, people will be like, you guys spoiled it. But it's really good. It's got a lot of the C word throughout. It's got a lot of body parts, a lot of blood. And
big disclaimer, not for young kids.
Not
old
for young
teens
kids
at best.
all.
Yeah.
The one thing I really liked is I read an interview where I think the creator, or not the creator of the show, but somebody involved, somebody quite high up, mentioned that Homelander is a mix between Superman and Donald Trump. And he's got characteristics like the mental ability of Donald Trump, or the charisma and the personality of Donald Trump. Associated with Superman's powers. So if you don't want to watch Donald Trump flying around and shooting lasers out of his eyes, then don't watch The Boys. But if you think you might be into it, then yeah, this show is totally for you, man.
And one thing that so absolutely, I think that is spot on, dude. Like there's a lot of the themes that come up actually in season 2 speak directly to that, about how to rally a small base of people to be like fanatics that can help you get into like real power. Like it really touches on that almost like specifically. Yeah. And I love the themes of the show, because you get there's definitely a comment on the Me Too movement within corporations, for sure. There's one that I particularly loved was like the whole conversation around the LGBTQ community, where one of the characters comes out as being openly gay. And at first, to your point, because it's all about appearances, they won't let her come out. But then once that they realize that they have to do it, then it's like, how can we promote the fact that you're openly gay to the whole world? And it's just like, it's the stuff that corporations do all the time.
It's spinning. It goes from, oh no, this is going to be a bad thing. And then suddenly it comes out and they go, actually, how do we spin this to our own advantage? How do we make this look good? How do we sell? You know, how do we promote this? There's a lot of things. There's a lot about racism also. But I think season 1 is more about setting up the characters and getting them to establish themselves, and getting to know who is who. Season 2 is more direct commentary on society for the
Correct.
past 20, the year of 2020, like you say, LGBT, BLM, the Trumpism. There's a lot, like all of this is directly in your face. It's not hidden, or it's not subtle commentaries. It's like literally like, look, this is where we are right now. Which makes it so the spin of superheroes being basically, well, not for all of them, but most of them are being evil or selfish or looking after their own interests, coupled with a setting that is based in very much in reality now, or the world as it is right now in 2020, makes this really a can't miss show to watch, right?
Yeah, I would actually say, like, if you're the type of person that actually isn't into like the Marvel or a DC world, or you're just kind of fed up with that world, this is like the perfect antidote, because it's not superheroes in the context that you think of them. It very much grounds it and shows you how, like, if we did live in a world of superheroes, how corrupt that would be and how that would be taken advantage of. The last thing I'll say about this is, actually, I read the graphic novel for this, and you know how usually people are like, well, the graphic novel is way better. The show is way better than the graphic novel, I will say. As unpopular as that might be, the graphic novel goes on forever and ever. Like, the really good stuff you get at the end of season 1 is like 4 volumes later in the graphic novel. They spend a lot of time like battling like low level like superheroes that leads to nothing really at the end of the day. So for once, I'm like, I actually am enjoying the show more than the graphic novel, because it takes the same themes but organizes them in a much smarter way. So yeah, the show's like, it's easily my top 3. So
it's good to point out. All right, so that was The Boys. Catch it now and forever on Amazon Prime if you've got it.
Yeah. Alrighty, so on to my next one. We're gonna change it a little bit, and I'm gonna jump into graphic novels. So I read a ton of graphic novels this year, but unfortunately not a lot that came out in 2020. I'm not a keep up with the latest comics sort of guy. I tend to go back and just read old trade backs of novels that have come out like years ago. But this is one of my first ones. So it actually came up because when the pandemic started, our local comic book shop was really struggling. So I just went and bought like a big gift card from them to say, like, look, we want to help you guys out. And then afterwards, I like took the kids to like go pick out some books and stuff. And I was like, well, I'll pick out something for myself. I'm like, I wonder why I haven't read. So I picked up The Immortal Hulk and Mr. Miracle. Of the two, Immortal Hulk definitely has been like the one that's caught me. It's an ongoing series. It's still being written, and just to kind of set context, I had, as much as I like graphic novels, I don't think I'd read more than maybe one story arc from Marvel. Like, I've always been like a non-Marvel guy. I read all the other stuff, like The Boys, for example. Like Garth Ennis kind of put that out, and like Preacher and Sandman and all this other stuff is what I love to read. So this was definitely a departure for me. I was like, all right, let's see what it's all about. And dude, it is so cool. So basically, this takes place in the Marvel universe. So all the Marvel superheroes are there, but it's in a universe where it's not the main story that's happening. It's like a side story. And in this universe, the Hulk is immortal, right? And we kind of always thought that, but you thought, all right, if you can kill Bruce Banner, you can kill the Hulk.
Yeah.
But in this world, even when you kill Bruce Banner, as soon as he's dying, the Hulk kicks in and brings him back to life every time. So you can't actually kill him. So the interesting thing is, like, I'm assuming the writers took that as a premise and went, if you can't kill the Hulk, what does the Hulk stand for? So the Hulk gets elevated to almost like godlike level, where he is really like trying to figure out the future of humanity. And he's kind of pulling a little bit of a Thanos, where he starts to realize, we're running this world into the ground. Like, we're destroying this planet. We're destroying humanity as it exists because of all the things we're doing. We need some sort of reset. And without spoiling too much of the sort of stuff that's happened, like, there's like a point in the graphic novel where it flashes to like the future, like 5,000 years in the future, and the Hulk's still there, and humanity has like humanity has like drastically changed, And dude, it is just the implications of each volume are just so interesting. This one's very plot driven rather than character driven, but it's been such a fun ride, dude. Like super fun ride, and it's the first truly like horror comic that I've read from Marvel. I know there's others, but it really plays like a horror movie in its visuals. It's super well drawn for sure.
I think the fact that he's immortal is something that could have been taken from. I mean, there was this sentence in, I can't remember which one it was. I think it's the Avengers Age of Ultron, I believe. Maybe Age of Ultron, or the first Avenger film where Banner says he's trying to kill himself.
Yeah.
And he tried, but then the Hulk would come out and stop the bullet, like literally would bite the bullet with his teeth. So I think that could be where they're taking the ideas from. I don't know. Maybe it's been created before the movie came out, or maybe that's something that's mentioned before in previous comics. I don't know.
Yeah, no. So the idea, actually, funny enough, it's very close to what you said. Like that, I believe that idea in the movie Age of Ultron was inspired by something that happened in the main storyline for Marvel, where Bruce Banner makes a pact with Hawkeye of all people, and he gives him a gamma radiated arrow that he's supposed to shoot at Bruce Banner and kill him with. And in the main series, he does. Yeah, it actually happens. Of course, like with everything Marvel, they find a way to bring him back. They don't do it as deliberate. But in this book, it's like as soon as he dies, he's like not done dying, and he's back into the Hulk. So here's like it's almost like he instantaneously regenerates. Whereas in the comics, he just shows up later, and there he goes like, "Oh, I guess you're not dead." Da da da. So yeah, it's very much was built on that scene, and they actually talk about that scene in this comic. And dude, it's super fun ride. Like there's a part where they try to like chop up the Hulk, like one scientist that wants to basically harness his abilities, like literally cuts him up into pieces and puts him into a bunch of jars. It's awesome.
As soon as there's somebody getting cut up, you love it.
Yes. So the visuals like will it's stuff you want to just like relook at, and then Bruce Banner also comes out as being like having like multiple personalities, which also explains a lot of the stuff between him and the Hulk, because there's always been this dialogue between him and Hulk, but now there's like dialogue between multiple people inside of him. And there's like this power struggle, so it's just super good. It's like psychological, like there's like sci-fi stuff, there's horror stuff. Can't recommend it enough. It's written by Al Ewing, not to be confused with Patrick Ewing, and he's right now one of the most talented writers in Marvel. So definitely check out anything he's writing. He's really good.
I feel like I should go with the video game, because I think that one was people were waiting on that one for a long time. So what I'm talking about is The Last of Us Part 2, which came out on PlayStation 4. I don't know if I should introduce The Last of Us Part 1, really. I mean, it's I'll just do it briefly. So it sets up Part 2. So part 1 is about two main characters named Joel and Ellie. So Joel's, let me reframe that. It's after the end of the world. There's a zombie outbreak. There's a virus, and obviously they turn into zombies. And the classic zombie world.
Regular Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, regular Sunday afternoon with zombies. So there's no virus. The world is obviously turned to shite. Think of it as The Walking Dead. The same premises as The Walking Dead, right? So you've got a bunch of survivors. They've set themselves up in massive zones, cities, villages, and they go out, I think, during the day. This is the same stuff. They don't go out at night because it's too dangerous. The army is taking over, so they run the show. So you are first in control of Joel. Joel's gotta do some jobs for different rival gangs, and he's gotta go to B to pick up that, come back to A, and then eventually gets mixed up into a job for what they call again, I forgot the names, but one of the main gang who's gotta go and pick up a girl, and the girl allegedly has in her blood the remedy for the virus. She's got everything in there
Oh.
that we need to make a vaccine. So again, very 2020. So she's got the antidote in her blood. So a bunch of stuff happened in the first one. People die, which is fun. And part two, I think the end of part one, I think is mostly I can't really. It's such a long game. I can't really go into too much details because it'll take hours for me to sum it up. But they both are alive at the end of the first one, but their relationship is based a bit on a lie because of something that happens where Joel has to lie to save Ellie's life. But saving her life means that the vaccine doesn't get made, so the world carries on as it is, still run by zombies and the army. And he, at the end of part one, swears that she's not actually the key to restoring life as it was before. That's where we ended on part one. Part two picks up, and you're now part of this massive town. Joel is a lot older. Ellie is older. Ellie, well, it's sort of hinted in part one, but Ellie is now fully bisexual. Well, she's lesbian, but I think they hint at her being a bisexual, but I think she's now fully lesbian in that one.
I heard about that.
And she's got a love story with another member of the village. And they go out for another job, and then something happens, meaning that is now turning it from let's try to save the world with a vaccine to I want revenge, and it's now becoming a revenge story. That game is long, and that's why I can't sum it all up. But it's revenge, it's love, it's you go through a whole bunch of emotion. I think it's one of those rare games that if you're not mentally prepared for it, it'll be a tough one to deal with. So that one was if people were waiting on that game for a long time. It wasn't confirmed for a bunch of years that there would be a follow-up story. I think because of the popularity of the game and the love that people have for the characters, they had to come up with part two. I think it wasn't originally planned that way. And part two, I think for me personally, I love the game. I thought it was a lot easier than part one in terms of gameplay. I think it's more of a walking simulator at times, but because the graphics are so nice and the vibe is so well done, it's based in Seattle, so right up where you where you live. So the graphics and the cities and everything is recreated so well that you don't mind if there's maybe less zombies and less action. That's all good. But I think where really that game was talked about a lot was because of the sexual orientations of its main characters, where there were rumors at some point that the other character you would control is a transsexual, which wasn't true at all. That's never mentioned in the game. And then you went from, well, she's not a transsexual, she's lesbian. Oh my God, pitchforks. Turned out she isn't. She wasn't either. She was just a girl that was in the army, and she was trained physically to be in the army, so she's got muscles. So it went from transsexual to homosexual to a big girl with muscles, and it went into every single directions you could think of just to take the game down. And so we could do an episode on The Last of Us. I think that there's a lot to talk about and unpack, but that's not the point of what we do here. For this episode in particular, I think.
What is the point of what we do here, Tom?
There's no point. Just the money. We want the money.
Yeah. All those lovely cents rolling in from streams. Look at it.
Yeah.
There goes another penny.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, it's not the point of this episode. The point of this episode is to talk about what we enjoyed, and I think I really loved this game. It took me a good 30 to 40 hours to finish, but it was all worth it. Every single hours of this game I've played was just amazing. It takes you and because obviously I'm based in the UK, and the only time I went to the US was in Seattle. So for me, it was like, oh, cool, I know that place. I've been there. I've been on that big wheel. I've been there. I've been to the football stadium. It's awesome. It was quite to see. It's nice to see it run down and completely demolished. But so If you have not played it, please pick it up. Make sure you play part 1 first, though. Otherwise, you will be dropped into a story where you don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, and this is a PlayStation exclusive. Definitely not for the younger crowd, is my guess. Or are we recommending for younger crowd?
Unless you're comfortable with them beheading zombies, then no.
Okay, so not recommended for violence, but definitely recommended for cultural relevance.
Yes.
In that this sounds like it is not Gamergate approved, which means that we're all about it then.
Let's put it this way: there was a lot of noise around it, a lot of BS around it that were for no reasons. Some of the stuff that came out, I was literally, if I could roll my eyes more than once, I would have my eyes would have they could probably be spinning now still. You know, because it would be like, come on, that was unnecessary. All the stuff that was, all the commentaries around it, I don't feel like is. And people were talking about the quality of the game, mixing the quality of the game and their bad mouthing of it. You know, thing of if there's transsexual characters in there, or you know, it would be a bad game. I mean, there's a lot of comments there that came out on social media that really made you wonder about the human race at times. I was like, literally times I was like, I need to. It's very toxic. It's very, very toxic.
Well, it reminds me of like when Captain Marvel came out, right?
Yes.
Like people were actively trying to like get it voted down on Rotten Tomatoes, which was disgusting, dude. It's like those things are just so ridiculous.
Same happened here. Same.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's out, and I'm glad that like from whatever, because that, well, I have never played it. It definitely got into my sphere of things that I've been like hearing about, and everybody loves the game, and even like they're going to develop it into a movie, is my understanding. So I hope so, man. It's like I hope it gets all the awards in the world, man, because it sounds like it's an awesome game, and it needs to exist.
The last thing I'll say on it is, as every single video game or TV series or movies, that if you like it, it doesn't hurt anybody else. Then play it. If you don't like it, then just move on to the next thing. You don't need to spend hours on social media trying to take down people's enjoyment and trying to take it away from people that were looking for, forwards to it. There's no point in doing that. You're just wasting your time and everybody else's time. If you're not happy with something, maybe, you can feel free to comment once, but then don't spend the whole day talking about that. Anyway, that was it. Last of Us Part 2, play it. You love it. PlayStation only.
Awesome. All right. So for my next recommendation, I'm going to dive back into kind of the series world, but in anime. So this is my first anime recommendation. It absolutely has to be My Hero Academia. Yes. So My Hero Academia did not come out in 2020, but the 4th season ended in 2020. So I can sneak it in on a technicality. For anybody that's not versed with My Hero Academia, and that's probably a lot of people, My Hero Academia is a weekly Shonen Jump series that comes out in Japan, and it is basically the boys in anime, but with a positive message. It's the best way I could put it. So My Hero Academia it takes place in the world where 80% of people have superpowers. Within the show, they call them quirks. So everybody has a quirk. But superpowers can range from everything to like super strength to like creating fire to having like a tail, to like having frog abilities, to like being able to like create Legos, to like shooting tape from your elbows. Like I could go on and on, dude. The actual superpowers are bonkers. And that's like half of the reason to tune into the show. They are so inventive with all superpowers because the cast of characters is huge. So the actual premise of the show is that because 80% of people have superpowers, then schools are based around superheroes. So you have to like try to get into the best superhero school. So it's kind of like Hogwarts sort of thing, only there's like we know there were multiple other like wizard schools in Harry Potter, right? So it's kind of the same premise. They're trying to get in there. There's like different classes. Each class within it has like different abilities, and they like have different adventures. And then they train to then graduate and then join superhero. In this world, they call them superhero agencies. And instead of like The Boys, where there's like one mega corporation, here there's a bunch of different agencies that police each part of town. So each part of Tokyo. So one district will have like its own agency. It'll have like 3 heroes, and they police that area. So when the kids graduate school, they're like, it's kind of like the real world. Like they go and they interview, they go on internships with those agencies, and then eventually they become full-time heroes and they get contracts and stuff, right? So it's like, it's the other end of The Boys completely.
All right.
Now,
is it kid friendly? Kids friendly?
it is extremely kid friendly. There, as with all Japanese anime, I would always say like, depending on your tolerance level for like some cursing, that's like at worst as it gets. And unfortunately, there's still, how can I put this? There's still some moderate amount of female objectification. Would be the right word, because unfortunately anime still has a little bit of way to go with that. But I will say this show is better than others in that sense of like, women aren't just like things to look at, like they actually have an integral roles and parts within the show. So just cool. And not all of them are like dressed in like barely covered clothing and stuff. Like
cuts,
there's a little bit of that, but not too much. But it never gets into like weird sexual world, like in terms of like it never gets too odd or anything like that. It's more like there's a little bit of cursing, but just look it up on IMDb or on Common Sense Media, and it shows you the kind of the curses. If you're comfortable with those curses, it's fine, and they're not often. Like I let our 11-year-old watch it, and he's fine. So point being is that the plot is about this one kid that doesn't have a quirk, and his name is Izuku Midoriya, and Midoriya, or eventually he has a nickname called Deku, and everybody just calls him Deku. He basically aspires to be a hero, and then when he comes of age and realizes that, wait, I don't have a superpower, he just relentlessly studies heroes and their strategies, and he's like, somehow I'm going to be part of this world. And then through a chance encounter, and this happens in like the first 5 episodes, he actually gets a superpower handed down to him. It turns out there's a superpower that can actually be handed down, because most people are just born with it, kind of like X-Men style. He gets the power, but the power is too strong for his body. So he spends most of the time trying to master the power of like how he can use this superpower that he's been given. And he trains and trains. He manages to get into the superhero school. And then it becomes kind of like Hogwarts adventure, where like the kids are in school and they're learning, and they're having competitions, but then stuff happens that disrupts the competitions or whatever it be, and they have to take on like real bad guys.
Yeah.
And it is just awesome to watch. From like 2 big things I'll say. One, the actual fight scenes are awesome, because they're those classic Japanese anime fight scenes where they're like thinking through the strategy as they're doing it. So they're like, oh, I can see he's attacking me with his like left hand. That means his right hand must be free right now. I can attack him from the right, and then I'll get a better efficiency in my attack. And they get like super nerdy about attacking each other, and they're constantly like narrating the whole thing, but it works really well. And then the second thing is that I will say about this show is that, dude, it is an amazing show as far as getting real lessons in empathy.
All right.
It's the one thing I absolutely love about the show, and it's the reason why I really love it and watching and stuff. The main character is a very selfless person, and it's a running joke that in the first season he cries no less than like 20 times, and it's cool to see like a main character that's a dude that is willing to cry, and most of the time he's crying is because he's crying, he's so thankful to the other person over what they've done for him, or he's like trying to understand what the other person's going through, and then it makes him really emotional. And if anything, he actually is a little bit too caught up in his emotions sometimes, and can't like get out of it. But it's cool because you see characters helping each other and really acknowledging each other, being self-reflective about their strengths and their weaknesses. Dude, the whole thing from a mental health perspective, if you look at it through that lens, the show is absolutely fascinating. So great show for kiddos to watch that has cool action, cool characters. For the grownups, there's some real like legit life lessons in there. So absolutely, like this definitely is in like my top 5 of anything I did this year, outside of like nerdy or not nerdy. I absolutely enjoyed this so much.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Right. What's my third one? I'm gonna go with something that we debated before we started recording. I think it's a travel series. I want to talk about it because it's been in my life for the last, I'm going to say, 11 years. It's pretty much the something that's been a running theme. So what I'm referring to is the Long Way Up, which is part of a trilogies of travel documentary series. So it includes it involves Ewan McGregor, Star Wars Ewan McGregor, and his friend Charlie Bowman, who's also an actor. Obi-Wan, yep. And his friend Charlie Bowman, who is a British actor, and Hugh McGregor being from Scotland. They met a long time ago on a film set. Actually, funny enough, the film was directed by by Charlie Bowman's dad, who is a very famous movie director in the 70s. So they met, they became friends, and one of the passion they have in common is riding motorcycles. So one of the things, they obviously a bit like us, they became friends. Their wives are friends, and they have kids that are in the same age category. They both had, at the time of the first series, they both had 2 girls, or 1 girl for Hugh McGregor, but they both had kids, all girls, sort of the same age, and they ended up going on holiday together pretty much every single year or every 2 years. And during one of those holidays, they went, hey, maybe we should kind of mix our 2 passions, going on holidays together and motorcycling. So they would go on, those weekends away, and they come back after 2 or 3 days being on the road. And eventually they thought, you know what, let's go and ride a motorcycle around the world. Let's make it longer than that. And they looked, there's a famous thing in the entire series where Hugh McGregor is looking at a map and he goes, well, if you go from London to New York, you can go around the world without lifting your finger. You can go through a bunch of countries and go, the long way around. So the first series was called The Long Way Around, where they drive from northern tip of Scotland all the way down to London. They go through Europe, Eastern Europe, and then mostly between Russia, Mongolia, China. Did they go through China? No, actually just Russia. And then eventually cross through Alaska, Canada, and they make their way all the way around to New York. And
so they actually crossed into Alaska. So
they fly in from somewhere, I can't remember the name in Russia, but they fly to Anchorage in Alaska.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And then they resume their trip. Nice. So obviously there's no other way to go. And then so that I think it took them 4 months to complete, and then they were always talking about, oh man, we need to do it again. So they did it again for The Long Way Down, when they went from, again, northern Scotland all the way down to South Africa, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, Cape Town, all the way down to Cape Town.
Oh, nice.
That's one is good also. They go through France, Italy, and all the sort of Eastern Africa coast, Middle Africa, Central Africa also.
Cool.
It's got more of a safari vibe to it, which is really weird. This more oriented towards animals and stuff like that. So they always said, oh, maybe now we've done Long Way Around, done Long Way Down. Let's do one day eventually Long Way Up. And they recorded and went out filming last year in 2019 to do The Long Way Up, and it got released this year on Apple TV if you got access to that.
Yep.
So Long Way Up is literally the other way on the other continents they've not done. So they go from the tip of South America, which is in Argentina, in Ushuaia, and they drive all the way up through Chile, through Argentina, cool. Through Panama, through Mexico, and eventually they end up in LA. But the reason why I'm talking about The Long Way Up is not because of it's, and I'm trying to relate it to the vibe of our podcast, which is nerdy.
Hey, it's Obi-Wan on a motorcycle.
It's Obi-Wan on the bicycle. It's Obi-Wan on the bicycle. Number one, but number two, I think the thing that I was nerding about was how they went from South America all the way to North America on electrical bikes, and how they've managed to find a solution on, the biggest solution is how do we charge as we go along, because obviously electric vehicles don't go as far as regular, petrol fueled vehicles. So it's like, how do you get all the way from Ushuaia to LA? And so they came up with a solution with the company, and then they got the motorbike.
Oh, and for our American audience, petrol means gasoline.
Sorry, gas for you guys. Sorry, forgot to mention it's gas car. Yeah, whatever.
Diesel,
it's not gas, it's petrol.
Gasoline.
It's actually it's not gas you put in. Anyway, it's not the point. They get their motorbikes designed by Harley, I think Harley Davidson.
Harley Electrics is what I saw. Yeah,
Harley Electrics. Yep. And then they've got also two pickup trucks, which are prototype vehicles. So they're not actually production cars. And they get those one, also all the way up to LA, and it's pretty impressive. There's a lot of engineering going on in those two motorbikes and those two pickup trucks. It's not as eventful is the word I'm looking for. Eventful as the first two ones, because the first two ones, there's especially the first one, The Long Way Around, the first series. There's a lot of stuff going down because they were highly inexperienced in it. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into, and it's a long trip, right?
Yep.
They got to Russia kind of unprepared, but they made it. This one, I think they were a lot more aware of what was going on and how to approach things and who to talk to and who not to talk to, and security reasons. Also going through Mexico, going through parts of Colombia, also with FARC and all that stuff. So it's quite scary to look at. But yeah, so if you're into things that are a little bit out there, that are slightly different, because I don't think anyone else has done that or on that scale, it's definitely a show. There's an awesome chemistry between Hugh McGregor and Charlie Borman. I think they because they're best friends for the last 20 something years, maybe longer than that. You can tell that they really are a tight-knit group. There's a bunch of producers and directors that are also with them along the way, and camera crew, and it's quite funny to see how they've themselves have changed from 11 years ago when they did the first one to now when they're obviously older. And it's like, well, I'm not sleeping outside anymore. I want a hotel room. It's like the demand of the needs and demands have evolved, and it's not the same spirit, it's the same vibe from the first one, but it's definitely interesting to look at in terms of technology that's being used and how they were definitely thinking outside the box on that one.
Oh, cool, dude! I'm definitely gonna check this out. Like, actually in college, I knew someone that did this, like Patagonia to Alaska cycling.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, and that was brutal. He told me the stories about it. Absolutely brutal. But also, it reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time, actually, called The Motorcycle Diaries.
Oh yeah.
And it's about Che Guevara. And before he joined the revolution in Colombia, in Cuba, about him basically going on a motorcycle trip with a friend all through South America. And dude, it is just one of the best movies I've ever seen. Like, it's just such a feel-good, awesome road trip movie. And this kind of reminds me of it. So I'm definitely gonna check this out, man. Good recommendation.
There's always something cool to see in those I was gonna say road trip series or movies. There's always that sense of adventure that is really awesome. If it's well portrayed, it's well put together, it can really make you think you were traveling with them, and it does feel sometimes like you're traveling along with them. It's really cool.
All right, so on to my next recommendation. It is The Mandalorian. No surprise. So for all our diehard fans, you will have already heard an entire episode worth of The Mandalorian. If you have not, though, go check out our episode, The Mandalorian. It is our episode 5. Check it out. It's one of our best performing episodes. We talk a lot about our love for Mandalorian, and in particular, me trying to convince Tom that it's a good idea. Tom, is The Mandalorian a good idea?
Oh man, it is a good idea. I've just finished season 1, and you were right. One of your points was, the first 3 eps were a bit slow, and you kind of wondering what's going on, and you don't really know what's happening, or you're not really seeing where it's going. But then from episode 4 onwards, it's just absolutely amazing. Episode 6 being my favorite. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm getting into season 2 probably tonight. I'll start, if not tomorrow. Nice. But yes, I'll be probably by the time we record our next episode, I'll have all caught up with you.
Nice. Well, in the interest of time, to try to hopefully we can land one of these episodes at an hour. We'll move on. But if you definitely want to hear more about The Mandalorian, it's one of my favorite shows of the year. Definitely the best way I can put it. It's like it's the best way to get into Star Wars again. Like if you were like
Yes.
put off by the last three movies, this is a great way to get back into it. So check it out.
And I think on your document you put Star Wars is fun again. I think that's absolutely that's what it is. It is fun again. It's fun to watch.
Yep.
Right, my turn again. I'm gonna go with Black Spot, which is a Belgian/French TV series on Netflix. And this one sort of
I'm dying to hear about this.
This one sort of came out of nowhere for me. There was a bit of there's a short period for about a month where I went on a French speaking binge of watching anything that was French speaking on Netflix, not downloading, getting my hands on films and stuff on the internet that was French. So anything French at the time, French speaking was something that I was really big and into. I think it was the month of September, right after I went on holiday.
Nice.
So this one is it's weird to explain because you literally dropped into this village. So you're following this guy who's a new what's the word we use? He's a new prosecutor who is investigating a bunch of weird happenings in this remote village in the middle of a forest, very dark and huge forest. It's, I believe, meant to be in the middle of France, kind of central part of France, where there's a bunch of volcanoes and a lot of dark forests over there.
Yep.
And it's always raining and humid, and a bit like Portland. I think it's that sort of vibe when it's like.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it's about you guys. So you literally dropped in there. You're following this guy who's new into the job. He used to, obviously being a French series, he used to be a prosecutor in Paris. So he used to be working as a, for the police over there, and he used to be this judge. And we don't know why, but he loses his job, or he's demoted, and he has to go and investigate what was going on in that village. Nobody else wants to go there. So because he gets demoted, you get to go. You choose. You won the big prize. So it starts with. I think there's only about a few. I think there's 2 seasons of it. There's about 10 episodes per season, so it's not huge. It's not super long.
Cool.
And you start on something that is, you think it's like monsters and ghosts and stuff like that, but then it sort of move on to the Scandinavian mythology storyline, where suddenly you see stuff happening in the forest, where there's actually the god of the forest or the god of the trees or whatever, which is related to all these Norse gods. So if you play God of War, there's definitely a couple mentions of gods about in God of War. I also mentioned in that show in Black Spot. So you're following the guy. You're also following the I say the sheriff, but yeah, she's sort of the sheriff of the town, and she's got a lot of issues. She disappeared for a few days when she was a teenage girl, and she came back. She has no memory of what happened, or she's got only a few flashes of what happened. So she's trying to get her life. Well, she's trying to carry on with her life as a sheriff of the town, having a teenage daughter who's also up to no good, and also trying to get the pieces of what happened to her as a 16, 17-year-old or 18-year-old. I think it's for her 18th birthday. She disappeared, and trying to understand what happened to her, and that's how that's related to what's going on in town at the same time. So there's nothing, it's no time travel or anything. It's literally pure, gods and stuff like that, but one god in particular that is up to no good, or is he? We don't know. What else is there? I think it's plenty of like interesting characters. You could follow any one of them. But I think what stood out also is the vibe of the entire series, but then the way it's filmed. It's like the production value is absolutely outstanding for a Netflix series. So I think just for that, the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. The shots they managed to get out of the forest and the village or the town, absolutely banging.
Yeah, just from the lighting of it and the look of it, it looks like it's like quasi horror.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, this looks really good. Is this originally like a BBC show, or is like a truly Netflix original? Now?
No, it's a Netflix original.
Nice.
But yeah, it's funny because I know most of the actors that are on there from other French series, and it's funny to see them in there dropping
really?
that very serious. It's not horror. It's not 100% horror. Yeah, it's not like body parts and stuff flying around and guts. You don't really see that. It's like there's a couple gruesome murders, but it's not. It's and it's funny the way it's set up. It's like every single episode would have a different storyline, as in you've got the murder, like in those 80s and 70s cops.
Like a
series where it's
procedural.
like you've got a murder, you've got the one murder, and then you see how it fits in within the entire storyline. So you might get a bit of information from that murder that actually feeds into the main storylines of what the hell is going on in that town. But yeah, if you've not watched it, absolutely go for it, because that's something that it'll freak you out at times, where it's not. It won't. It won't.
Looks like
it will let you go to sleep. It will let you go to sleep.
Let you go to sleep. Okay. It looks like it's got influences from American Gods, or that am I getting that wrong? Like it's like personifying like old gods.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah. American Gods is literally like, oh, this is the god of whatever. That's the god of whatever. That's it. Yeah. And it's like, the powers. This is more looking at trying to understand what's going on, what's happening around the town and around the forest. But people are extremely skeptical. Everybody is based in reality, but the reality is extraordinary, right? But they don't understand it yet. So it's not. There's one god in it, and I think it's mentioned. But even people are trying to investigate that. They don't really believe it's a god. But anyway, I'm not going to spoil it.
Okay, yeah, don't spoil it. No, it looks really good. Like I definitely want to check this out. And with like this type of show, would you say kid friendly? Not kid friendly.
No, not kids friendly at all.
Older teens at best.
Yeah, I'd say like from 15, 16, you could go for that. It's got a loose X-File vibe to it,
Okay, but, I get that.
But with more slightly a more violent X-Files. Right, X-Files was all about the extraordinary and UFOs and sometimes monsters, but you would never see gruesome things. I think this one's got a bunch of bodies at times, but yeah, there's a lot of reference to death and gruesome death, so maybe not.
Those good old classic French horror movies. I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of French horror movies, so I'm just going to go with that. I should actually. All right. So in the interest of time, coming up to my last one, we will get this into an hour.
Yes.
Not.
Oh,
so my last one, and well, I know we weren't ranking. This is my favorite thing of the year. This is I could talk about an hour about the show, Lovecraft Country on HBO Max,
which you've mentioned before.
So good. Yeah, I think during our horror episode, I might have brought it up maybe. Yeah. So guys, definitely go check out our horror episode. It's an anthology of horror over the various decades. Just a little plug. So Lovecraft Country, what is it? It's even hard to describe what the show is. So it's, if anybody's familiar with H.P. Lovecraft was kind of like the Stephen King of the 50s. Right. He came up with a lot of like sci-fi horror short stories, novels, and really like influenced a lot of the horror we see today. And because it was no longer based on the werewolf and like the vampire and the Frankenstein monster. These were totally new monsters that he had come up with that were original to his work. He invented a new world effectively. Right. And so people have taken inspiration from that for years and have done other things that that H.P. Lovecraft inspired. So even like that movie that bombed a couple of years back, the one about the guy in Mars, John Carpenter in Mars, maybe something like that. But it's even inspired like big blockbusters and stuff like that. And but what this show did, which is very interesting, because the show is actually executive produced by J.J. Abrams and Jordan Peele of Get Out,
Ooh,
right,
yeah.
and Us. That's what, as soon as I heard that, I was like, "Ooh, that's an interesting combination of producers." So they're basically taking Lovecraft stories and then setting them in a world where one of the key themes of the show is racism. And the reason why they did that is H.P. Lovecraft is a very talented author, but he was also an incredible
Yeah.
racist. He had like
Yes.
full on essays about how the white race was superior, like all these things, just like horrible stuff that in the last decade or so has been surfaced more and more about him. So from my understanding, the idea is actually then how do you take his own racism and flip
Yeah.
it on itself? Right. So it's like, how do you take the ideas that he gave us and actually set it in a world where actually the whole point is to liberate characters from the racist systems we have? And I just thought that was fascinating. Now, the great part is that it's still good, nerdy fun at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because it's about this character that finds out that he comes from a legacy of people that have like a special ability. Because it's definitely one that can be easily spoiled, so I won't say too much. He comes from a legacy of people that can do something very special, and there's like this like cult that's trying to get a
Mm.
hold of him to like go through this ritual for something to happen, and that takes off the plot, right? The show actually plays like a little bit like an anthology in some ways, with like a plot that keeps it hanging together. But you could watch one of those episodes, thoroughly enjoy it, and maybe there's a couple of things within it that relate to the bigger plot that you might not understand, but you would still enjoy the episode because each one just plays out as its own like mini movie, which is awesome. And so the characters go on this adventure and stuff happens to them and they have to go find, and the usual, there's a MacGuffin, there's like a thing they have to go find to do the other thing, to get to the ritual, to get to the person, to meet the big bad guy. That's all
That's
straightforward.
it. Yeah.
But how they get there, like there's one episode that is probably the best Indiana Jones movie that's come out in the last decade. Like that one episode, it plays just like an Indiana Jones movie, and it is so fun to watch. Like I could easily go rewatch it today. It's so much fun to watch that episode. But the two that really stand out is there's one episode that is just what makes to me made this series absolutely amazing, because they took one of the supporting characters. She's basically one of the main characters' aunts, and she was kind of along for the ride. Like she has a stake in the game, and that something happened to something close to her, to someone close to her, so she needs to be along for the ride. But you really don't pay much attention to her. She's like a good supporting character. You're like, oh, she's fine. And then this one episode, she just takes it over, and she goes back in time. Like actually, not back in time. She travels through time, whether it be backwards or forwards, and her mechanism of jumping from one time, because she has control of how she can
Yeah.
jump from one one timeline to the other, or one time period to the other, is she has to say the name of who she wants to be. So she says the name of who she wants to be, and then she shows up at that time period,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And then she spends apparently like years and decades just traveling through time. For the rest of the characters, it just goes by in a few minutes, and she comes back with all this amazing knowledge. And dude, the show is just so well done, like so well done. It's like, because it gives you a lot of like nerdy time travel stuff, but at the same time, like seeing her character develop over that show into a person that was supporting to like a person of like big knowledge that has a big influence for the other characters afterwards, is just so good. So good. So absolutely love it. And the second one, there's one that will creep you out. That's a straight horror movie. And really, it looks like where Jordan Peele, I'm sure, had a big influence on that show, on that one episode, because it kind of feels like where Us left off. You know how like
yeah.
us is super creepy in the first half, and then the second half just gets super weird.
Yes.
It takes the creepiness of the first half and just makes it into a show. And oh, like I guarantee you that once we have Halloween again, people will be dressing up like two little girls that show up in that episode that are just so creepy, dude, so creepy, and I guarantee people will be dressing up like them. So yes,
ever since The Shining, I can't look at two little girls dressed as whatever, just hanging around. It's just no. There's always something creepy about two little girls.
Oh yeah. And then the last one I'll say, like, is that it's just all the episodes are so good. There's one episode that plays out kind of like the reverse of Speed. You remember Speed, the movie, where he can't go under whatever 80 miles an hour or whatever it may be. Well, here the main characters are traveling through the country, and they get stopped by the police. And this is the very racist South. And so the policemen tell them, like, we've got sundown laws here, which basically means that as a Black person, you could not be out and about in the county after sundown, or else it was basically like open season, like free game. They could hunt you down. So then they go like, well, we're just traveling through the county. We'll be out of your way. And then the cop says, well, sundown is exactly at X time. I think it's like 6:15. And you've got to stay under the speed limit, or else I'm going to pull you over and throw you in jail. And the speed limit is 25, and you've got exactly 25 minutes to make it to the county line. Dude, it is some of the best TV I've ever watched. It's like the tension where the guy cannot drive over like 25 miles an hour. It's like something stupid like that. He has to go super slow, but they're desperately trying to time it to cross that one line right before the sun officially goes down, and the cop is like basically like trailing them the whole time. Dude, the best tension I've seen on TV all year long.
That's like some Hitchcock inspired episode. Ooh.
Totally. And that one, nothing supernatural, but it is super good TV. So absolutely go watch. Even just catch a couple of episodes, super fun to watch. Definitely sounds like, actually, no, there is a second season has been greenlit. Personally, I would actually have been happy with just the first season. It's like Watchmen. It's just one season and I would have been super happy, but I'm glad they're doing it again. It is super good. More. Yeah. It's like some of the best like camera work for a TV series I've seen in a long time. Interesting characters, like, and the main characters from this show, look out for them. They're going to be everywhere. They're just super good actors.
I think on a side note, because you mentioned at the start that it's on HBO Max in the US. Obviously, we don't have it in the UK. HBO is not. There's no rumors. There's nothing that said that or that hints at HBO Max becoming a thing in the UK. But I think they have a deal. HBO's got a deal with Sky. So and then I just looked it up. So Lovecraft Country is on Sky Atlantic. So cool. For people in the US, Sky Atlantic is literally a direct feed from HBO and US based only channels directly into the UK. So that's their way in. So yeah, if you want to catch that, Sky Atlantic or HBO Max if you're in the US.
Awesome. Definitely geared towards the adult crowd. I think there's some episodes that the kids would enjoy, like that Indiana Jones one is like perfectly fun, nice, like action, like fun. But there's other ones that have like they're a bit they explore some adult themes there that probably aren't quite right for the kids.
Not all episodes are for kids.
Not all of them. Yes.
All right, so let me go on with my last pick. This one's a bit of a weird one because obviously we when we did prep for the episode, we had a bunch of them. We went all, to be honest, both of us went up to 10 picks for the year, and then we thought for the interest of and for the sanity of the listeners, let's go back down to 5 and mention a couple. But this one, the last one I've got on my list is a bit odd. And
I'm glad you left it for last. I'm super interested in this.
I'm listening for what. So my last pick is Tenet, the Christopher Nolan movie that got released in the cinema, and it's now coming out online. I think it's going to be on Amazon to purchase or rent. Not on Netflix just yet, but it will be. I don't know if it will ever be because I don't think any Christopher Nolan movies made it to Netflix. So Tenet is a bit weird because it's. And this is why it's weird because it's very hard to explain
because it's just flat out weird.
Because it's not weird, but it is a movie about time travel, but the way it's done and the way you progress through the movie, it's very confusing, and the reason why it's on my list is because it's a Christopher Nolan film, right? So the guy, you can't, most of his movies are magical and are great. And that one, I think I need more watch. I need to watch it a few more times to really fully get it. I actually did go online on YouTube and watch a bunch of videos to get somebody to explain to me what was going on. Um, the issue with the film, let's get that out of the way first, was the sound design. Christopher Nolan's films are always famous for having terrible to bad sounds. If you watch Batman,
Oh yeah,
uh, I think it was The Dark Knight. I can't remember the one with
Bane.
what's his face with Bane.
You
Yes,
can't understand what Tom Hardy's on a good day. You can't understand what Tom Hardy's saying, and with
Yeah.
Bane, it was so much more complicated.
In Bane, the original release, you couldn't understand a single word. Like you could you could hear him muffle, and you could make out a couple words out of it. They did re-release it with a clean audio of Bane, and you can understand what he's saying, so that's fine. But there are times where in Batman you'd be like, what? But the plot made sense. The plot is fairly straightforward with Batman. It's like he's got a guy to go and catch and capture and kill or whatever. The Joker, Bane, cool. But with Tenet, it's a very convoluted storyline. The plot is absolutely mad. So the fact that you're trying to understand what's going on, coupled with a bad audio mix, maybe, or just a bad audio mix, it doesn't help with trying to understand where it's going. So you basically going like you're in that scene, they're talking about something, you're like, wait, but what? And then they take you into the next action scene when it's like, wait, why are they doing this? And then they go back to the other place when they go, ah, shit, now it's the same thing in reverse, viewed from another angle. Because obviously being time travel, again, the plot is so hard to explain. It's I can't even start to.
Wait, are there any cats eating tacos in there?
No. There should be.
Right.
But
so there is, because my understanding is that there's something to do with the name of the movie being a palindrome. So you spell it either way you spell it, it's the same tenet backwards and forwards, and that has something to do with how you understand the movie. Because the only reason, like, Aiden has we have a game at home we play called Exploding Kittens.
Yes.
And one of the kittens
Greatest
in there is Taco Cat, which is a palindrome. So I'm like, I wonder if like Nolan got super meta and put like a cat eating tacos. That'd be super cool.
So I'll put it up on the YouTube video of the podcast. The picture you're referring to is the tenet, which is the word in the middle. You can read it backwards and forwards. You get the same words. But then the rest is, I think, is Sato and Rato. So it's like some weird words. It's just odd. It's very hard to explain. Basically, somebody creates a machine that can reverse the flow of time on objects or people, and then obviously Nolan's build a movie around that. It's just too odd to explain. Like, I need to watch it again and again, and I think the more I'll watch it, the more I'll understand, or things that you've probably not picked up on the first watch might make sense in the second watch and the third watch. It's a bit like Interstellar, when you don't necessarily pick things up on the first watch. So that's why my mind is not really made up 100% about the film. I liked it, but I need to watch it again, A, with subtitles for the next watch, and B, now I know the ending, I know what's going on. I'm sure I'll be like, okay, damn, that makes sense now. That's really cool now. The action scenes in it and the special effects are just amazing. It's like it's the things they have to film going backwards and trying to get it to fit in the action that's going forward, and the other way around is just mind-blowing. Actually, just trying to explain it is hard. So imagine trying to film this, how hard it must have been, and plan for it. And the other great thing about it is what's his face, Pattinson is in there, the future Batman. And he's probably the best thing in the entire movie. Like, his character is cool, and I think he deserves more screen time in that. But to saying that, I think he's going to be a great Batman.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
just that scene where he's like beating the pulp out of that guy in the trailer. I'm
In the
like, oh yeah,
trailer,
he's gonna be a
yes.
good Batman for sure.
I'm revenge.
Um,
Oh yes.
yeah, I
But
feel like
so
lately,
yeah,
everything he's in, he's like the star, even when he's not the star. He's just upped his game so much. It's crazy.
yeah, he's a good actor. He's a good actor. I think people are linking him to the Twilight series, and Twilight was just. I watched it. It's just a train wreck. But
Oh
he's a
yeah,
good actor. It doesn't mean if you're in a bad bunch of movies, doesn't mean you're a bad actor. It just means that everything around it was bad. Your script was bad, or the directing was bad, whatever. But he's turned it around. He's now like every time I watch something with him, it's just he's really really good at it. So you might be
the
thinking, why did you
lighthouse. That was
why
darn
did you
good.
put freaking Tenet in my list? Well, it's a Christopher Nolan movie, right?
Yeah,
It deserves more than one watch. It deserves to be analyzed again. And there's a lot of there's always meanings and meanings of meanings and stuff that is hidden in plain sight in those films. And the reason why I put it in there is because I was waiting on the new Interstellar type of film, and I think this is in the same vein slightly, as in you need to watch it more than once. I think that's the main takeaway here. I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. It just needs more. Like if you're gonna go in there and just gonna be watching it once, you'll be like, oh, cool, nothing, great. If you approaching it the same way I'm approaching it, which is like it will deserve more viewings, then you'll enjoy it. And it's
yeah.
Nolan again. It's Nolan. You can't go wrong with Nolan most of the time.
So I guess we're saying it's like we're talking to the deep nerds here.
Yes.
Yes, this is like you got to feel your innermost nerdiness bubbling up to want to watch this movie because you need to analyze it and go see videos about it. But honestly, like as much as like we make fun of that, is like there is something kind of every once in a while I'm in the mood for that. Sometimes I just want to watch something and enjoy it, but every once in a while I'm like, wait, I want something that actually I struggle to understand to just go through the deeply nerdy process of like reading different people's opinions of it and how people have analyzed like even like the minutia of the movie, because whereas sometimes it doesn't pay off. You're like, all right, you're analyzing for the sake of analyze. Like sometimes I find that, and coming back to like Star Wars fandom, in like the main movies, sometimes you get a little bit of that where like over analyzing just like small details that don't matter. But in Nolan movies, the small details do matter, right? It's like we were talking about it, and like I think in a previous episode, like even Interstellar. I remember watching it going like, oh, that's cool. But then the second and third time I watched it is when it really blew my mind, where I was like, because one, I had subtitles that always helps with a Nolan movie having subtitles. And second, like I'd heard a podcaster reframe it for me in a very particular way. And I think the same thing happened to me. That's why this movie makes me think of The Matrix 2. When it came out, everyone's like, so what was that? Yes. And everybody hated it, right? And only later did like a lot of people still hate it. Only later did some people come back and go like, no, that actually is a really good movie. In that, like the action scenes in The Matrix 2 are legit. Like they're like for that time, those were amazing action scenes.
And it's funny you mentioned The Matrix because only recently I stumbled across this YouTube channel where the guy was explaining the roles of different characters within the entire 3 movies. Characters that you might not think are important, but actually are extremely important. It might be the ones that are pulling the strings and everything. Their involvement into everything is probably a lot deeper and more important than you really think. And I think that it's good sometimes to have those movies when you're like, huh, what the hell? And that's what Tenet is. Like your initial reaction will be, what was that? And then you watch again. And then you have to, like you said, you have to be in the mood to go on YouTube, search for those videos, trying to explain all the Easter eggs, all the little things you've missed on, and then go back and watch the movie again. And I think that's why I like this. That's why I love Tenet, because it literally made me go on YouTube and go, okay, what was that about? Well, I didn't get that. And I love sometimes to go through those films. I love to not having my hand holds, like held and I think there's nothing worse to me than a movie when somebody goes, oh, So now we're gonna go and take a plane to Germany, and we're gonna try to break into this bank whilst the action's going on. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. If we manage to steal that bank from that bank, we're gonna get very rich and be able to kill half the world population. You know, stuff like that. And you're like, okay, cool. But I didn't need you to explain to me. So the tenet is like that. That you need to do your own research and well, not research because it sounds like conspiracy theory shit, but you know, you need to make your own. You need to go do the extra mile, take the extra step, and look into what he was trying to say and what the meaning behind one scene and behind a sentence and behind a word and behind the music that is being used. I think that's what I've put him on my list.
Yeah, his scores are always super impressive. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to
underscore. Oh yeah, when things are happening in reverse, the music's in reverse. And then sometimes you've got action going on that both worlds are colliding. So you've got the things that are happening forward and the thing that's happening backwards. And the shots when the music's happening forward, the music goes forward, and then it goes like, it messes up with your brain because like the music goes na na na, and then it goes whoop, whoop, whoop. You know, it's like this. It's really weird to listen to, but it's awesome.
All right, cool, nice. Yes, so I will be looking. I think it's now on Blu-ray DVD. So
yes.
We will go about figuring a way of acquiring it somehow.
Yes, sure.
Sure. All right. So now coming to the end of the episode, we're going to do our quick hits of just like a bunch of other stuff that didn't quite make the top 5 list, but we definitely want you guys to know about. We won't spend too much time on them. So for my quick hit recommendations, I want to actually touch on some movies. So it wasn't a strong year for movies, I felt, but there's 3 that I definitely want to touch on. The first one's called The Vast of Night. It's on Amazon Prime. And think of it as like a long Twilight Zone episode. Cool. A lot of tension, not a lot of like seeing the bat or the monster, but they built up really cool tension. But this is the interesting premise, is like the sound design is fascinating. It basically, the movie is recorded like it's a podcast with visuals, is the best we can put it. Once you see it, you'll get it. There's a lot of like people are involved in radio, and that's how they're communicating. There's a lot of phone calls, and you know, like in a podcast drama, that's how you find out what's going on, because there's no like action necessarily. That's how this goes. Super good, very inventive. Like also like the way that's shot to match. It feels like they created the sound design and then shot the movie, is the way I feel like it went. So definitely check it out. Second is a little more like probably most people have seen this if they have kids. Onward. Well, not considered one of the best like Pixar movies. I gotta be honest, I super enjoyed this. Ain't gonna lie, I cried at the end. I love the fact that that it draws from D&D, and hence saying, hey, we're getting like a little nerdy representation happening in Pixar. Yeah. But also I really love the fact that like the person that ends up being the hero is pretty much a nerd. Right. And he ends up helping by sticking to his nerdiness. Like he has all this pressure from people going like, let go of that stupid game you like to play, let go of these like dumb fantasy ideas. And then him like owning who he is ends up being one of the key things in the movie. And I absolutely love that.
That's Pixar, so that will be on Disney Plus, right?
Disney Plus, yes. And then The Invisible Man is the other one. Well, it's not, I wouldn't call this a great movie. I think that it's really interesting what it's trying to do. It's reinventing like IP that we're all very familiar with. This basically what Universal's doing is they're bringing back the Universal monsters. So the Universal monsters are Dracula, the Wolfman, the Invisible Man, the creature from the Black Lagoon, all those things. And so this is kind of the first of like relaunching this universe, but making it socially relevant. So it's kind of like Black Mirror meets the Universal monsters. Yes. And just the idea of them trying to do that to me is fascinating, because the Invisible Man isn't actually an invisible magic man. It's like he makes himself invisible through technology, right? And there's no spoiler there. Like we find that out early in the movie. But then how the movie plays out with the theme of spousal abuse. Yeah, that's what I thought. Like at least there's some things that they dropped for sure in the movie. But the fact that they were shooting for that, like talking about like social justice as well as like nerdy stuff, I thought was like really interesting. Apparently they're going to spin off a bunch of other movies, not spin off, but create a lot of other movies around those monsters, and like thinking of like, how do you reinvent the Wolfman for this day and age. How do you reinvent Frankenstein, right? So already there's some big directors attached to the projects coming up from Universal. So I'm excited to see where this whole series goes. That'll be really cool. And then I got two more, one graphic novel, The Old Guard. You can either watch the movie or on Netflix or check out the graphic novel. They're both absolutely excellent. It deals with, it's a superhero movie, but with like a different take on superheroes that are immortal, like what immortality actually means. And it kind of means like they get bored after a while. They don't want to do this anymore, sort of thing. And then they look back at like their lives and what shaped them and how they've been there. The only thing you can hope for is to better the world as a whole when you're immortal, because you can see things carry out across entire centuries. So I just thought the way that they position immortality as something that's more of a burden rather than a blessing to them is super interesting. And then last but certainly, actually, I got a few more. The next one is BoJack Horseman. It's a cartoon on Netflix, not for kids, definitely geared for adults, but it is the best thing I've ever watched that deals with trauma and depression. Like just how trauma lingers with you and leads you to do other things, and then eventually leads you into depression, or whether it be like other similar tendencies that disrupt your mental health. It just deals with it in a super interesting way. I think it's just a great show. It has great lessons in there, super good, but at the same time hilarious, like absolutely hysterical show. And then I'll fire through the last ones. The Good Place, the series, absolutely loved it. It does have nerdy overlap with like Afterworld sort of conversations. There's a graphic novel called Gideon Falls. Check it out. It will for sure be a series in a few years. I'm convinced of it. It's the best horror novel I read this year. That's like flat out horror. And no tie-ins with Marvel or DC. And then there's one last graphic novel called Black Hammer. Once again, it takes the superhero ideas and like flips them around and makes them more about family rather than superheroes, but they just all happen to have superhero abilities. Written by Jeff Lemire, one of my favorite graphic novel writers, and it is just absolute joy to watch, to read. It's got like emotional moments, it's got like decent action, but also just like the design and like illustration of it is super cool. And that's all I got, man. I'm out. Whew, got there.
All right, cool. I've got a couple mentions as well. I think the first one, I'm gonna go video games related first with Spider-Man Miles Morales, which was a short story, follow-up to the original Spider-Man the last Spider-Man video game on PS4. You're now playing in the role of Miles Morales, so obviously that involves it's the same thing than Spider-Man, but it's just so much cooler. I think the character's got more charisma and a lot more to say. So I think that one, if you've got a PlayStation 5, go and pick it up. That's really cool. If you can get it cheaper than the actual price, if it's less than $60 for you guys and £50 for us in the UK, then absolutely go for it. I wouldn't pay full price because it's not a full game. They still recommend that. Not a full game because it's not finished. It's like it's not a full length game. It's not like 30-40 hours. You'll be done in less than 10. Then actually, I'm going to stay in the video games. I didn't put it on my list, but I'm going to say in the top 10 in the things to mention, the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X. If you can get your hands on a new generation of consoles, absolutely part of the best thing that happened this year. So if you've managed like me to get one on launch date, then awesome, good for you. If you've not managed to get yourself any of the two consoles, then just wait. You'll get your hands on one. You'll wait for January. You'll be there.
You'll be listing yours on eBay for $1 million.
Yeah, I could have, but I've not because I'm not a hole. So I'm gonna bring it back to, I think it's my last recommendation because I think we need to wrap this up. But my last recommendation would be Into the Night, which is a Belgian. I don't know what's with Belgium in this podcast, but again, it's a TV series on Netflix. made in Belgium, and it follows this group of people that actually have no connections to each other. They get on a plane and then realize that as the sun sets around the world, the sun ends up killing everybody that is in contact with sunlight. Well, actually, no, daylight.
What?
So they have to stay on the plane and fly around the world, making sure they stay in the shade. They have to avoid daylight. So obviously, being on a plane, you come across issues with, well, you're going to run out of plane fuel, and where do you land? How do you land? Can anyone land? And so it's a mix of science fiction, because of obviously what happened. How do people die with daylight? What's happening? We never know. It's mixed in with a bunch of paranoia, because of the characters absolutely don't know each other. So there's themes of racism. There's themes of a lot of things in there. Obviously sexual themes, because of people judging each other on face value. And then I think the other good point is that it's super short. It's only six episodes long, so you get to the point fairly quickly. It's also very uneven in terms of qualities. Like the episodes are really good, and then there's one episode that is like meh, but that's about it. Out of 6, it's fine. you'll get some fun out of that one. I think that's it. I think I'm done with mine.
Dude, that's something that I absolutely love, that I feel we need to do more of in the US shows. It's like it doesn't have to be 10 episodes. Like it's one of my huge annoyances. I love that's why shows out of the BBC and out of a lot of European productions, is that it's tight. It's to the point. It's like you get 5-6 episodes really well done, like Utopia, right? Mm-hmm. Utopia was such a good series. I heard the remake's not very good. No. But it was a tight series.
Sherlock Holmes on the BBC that featured Benedict Cumberbatch. That's how he got famous.
There's
those are also 5 or 6 episodes long per series, and even less than that. I think 5 episodes. Amazing.
Tom Hardy has a good series called Taboo on the BBC. That's same. It's only about 6-7 episodes, super tight. And I'm so anyways, love that recommendation. I'm definitely check that out.
Unlike us, it's not short. It doesn't go to the point.
And on that note, we should wrap up the episode. Thank you, Tom, for that, for reminding us that we do need to stop at some point. So that's been our 2020 recommendations. Go enjoy, check them out. We will be dropping them in, dropping all the lists in the show notes, so you can just check out the show notes and check out what we're into. So please rate, review, subscribe across what platforms, Tom?
Everywhere. So we're on PodBeans, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Amazon Podcasts, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. I think that's it.
We're taking over the world. All right, people.
One subscriber at a time.
Literally one at a time.
Literally.
That's right.
Especially on Facebook.
All right, dude. This is fun, man. We should do it again next year.
We shall. And we will. Cool. Thank you very much for listening. Right, please subscribe, as JC said.
And look, in the last few days of 2020, we all get 2021 will be way better. Yay.
Yes. Bye.